Okay, so how do we raise prices without losing a single patient? So great question. And I want you guys to understand that a lot of owners are so nervous about raising their prices or figuring out pricing that they're kind of just going off of feels, right? So it's just like, well, I feel like we should be doing like $120 for the eval and maybe like $90 for a routine follow-up. And some owners are like, I think we need to be at like $500 for eval and like $350 for follow, which is great. But how do you truly figure out what your pricing should be? It's a great question. Now, before we get into pricing, and I'm going to show you guys our framework for raising prices without losing a single patient. And I want you guys to understand that money is a good thing, right? As a business owner, or even if you're a clinician or even a clinical director watching this video, like a clinic needs money to be able to operate. And I want you to understand that we have always been indoctrinated to think that money is not a good thing, right? So when we were little and we would pick up money with our hands, like our parents would say, hey, you just touch money, so you got to wash your hands. Or if we heard someone was like really, really, really rich, people would say like they're filthy rich, right? So it's just like, even if you, I love comic movies and all that stuff, but if you ever look at like Tony Starks of the world or like Iron Man or whatever, it's just like, you know, they have to have money, right? And people view money as like greedy or corporate greed and capitalist pigs and all this other stuff. Even villains sometimes are going after the banks because, you know, they're evil. So I want you guys to understand that like we need money to be able to deliver a really good product, to pay good people and so on and so forth. And money is just a tool. And, you know, people say that like, well, money is the root of all evil. And it's just like, well, no, my belief system is that like money will only amplify who you are as a person. So if you are a really good person with a little bit of money, you're going to be a great person with a lot of money. And if you're kind of like a bad person without money, you're going to be a really bad person when you do have money. But if you're anxious when you don't have money, you're going to be even more anxious when you have all this responsibility and all this, right? And then same thing. If you're sad and depressed, more sad and depressed. If you're very happy. That's why people say like money doesn't buy happiness. It's correct, because money will only amplify who you are as a person. But my beliefs is that I want to make sure that you guys are set up in a way to be the most premium in your area, because you could either be the most expensive or you could be the cheapest, right? So there's no competitive advantage to being like the second cheapest. And I can tell you right now, trying to run a cheap physical therapy clinic doesn't make sense because it's healthcare. So I want you guys to be able to understand and wrap your head around, like, we want to be a little bit more on the premium side of things. Okay, we want to be premium, because when you're premium pricing, people view it differently, right? When you charge someone like $70 for a session is different than if you charge them like $700 for a session, right? There's a difference of things. And there is actually a really good study that was done with wine. And, you know, there was a bottle of wine presented in front of different tasters or buyers. And they were told that like, hey, each wine here, one was a $15 cheap wine, one was $150, and one was a $1,500 bottle. And they said, I want you to test the wines. And what happened is they went and they tested them and they ranked them, which ones they thought tasted better versus tasted worse. And what happened was interesting, is the wine that was the most expensive, perception of most expensive, was what they ranked first. But it was the same wine for all three, which is interesting. So realistically, that's the value of pricing, is sometimes when you price yourself in a way, even if people are like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it or whatever, we'll get to that in a little bit. But the pricing is also part of the product. And I want you guys to be aware of that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the framework to be able to raise your prices to whatever level you see fit, that matches your patients and your market and also your budget plan. And then how to roll this out with your team and how to roll it out with your patients without losing a single patient. So the first thing that we always want to do whenever we're kind of going over a new strategy and stuff like that, I always like to have like a preparation phase, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is come up with the prep and figure out like, what can we raise our prices to? The second thing that we're going to be able to do is come down here and we're going to come up with a plan. Okay. So we want to be able to come up with a plan to kind of roll this out. And then eventually what we're going to do is we are actually going to then present it to our patients, right? Cool. So we're going to prep, we're going to plan, and then we're going to present. So when we're looking at this thing, the first thing that happens when it comes to preparation, like how much should I actually raise my prices to? Now there's two different, and I know I'm speaking to different owners here. There's going to be the owners that are kind of starting their clinic and they have no data to go off of. Or there's going to be the camp of like, well, we already have a bunch of data Like, I want to be able to set my prices up according to that information. So the first thing I want you to do is that when it comes to preparation, there's going to be new business owners here, and we're just trying to figure out our pricing. And then there's going to be existing, right? So there's going to be existing practice owners, and they're going to be on this side of the equation. So first thing that we'll do is let's go to the existing side first, okay? Because there's probably going to be a little bit more existing people than new watching this video. So let's go to the existing first. So first and foremost, what I always want you guys to do is start out with what's your cost per visit, okay? It's one of the easiest ways to kind of set your cash pricing, either for your visits, for your eval, your routine visits, or also your add-on services. So the first thing that we're going to do is figure out your cost per visit. So cost per visit, which by the way, is going to be your expenses, and it's going to be divided by your total visits, okay? Now, I do like to put a timeline in front of this. I like to do the last 6 months of expenses and the last 6 months of visits just to have a little bit more recency bias, but enough sample size that we could really, get some good data here. So when you figure that out, let's say you take your total expenses here. Let's say that we're rocking $100,000 in expenses, and this clinic was just able to do, they did 10,000 visits in the last 6 months, and they're at $100 is what it costs them to run their clinic. Now, I'm just picking out some numbers here, guys. So if you're like $100 cost per visit, that's high. It's just an example. Most people will be down here between 50 to 100. We do have some clients that operate between 100 and 125. And then we do have some clients that operate between 125 and 175. Okay. So it just depends on where you are and what your model looks like. But just know that once we get our cost per visit, we'll be good. I got to get out a calculator to help you guys out a little bit here because I don't want to mess up the math and then you guys call me out. So what we typically do next is we want to then take our $100 and then we want to divide it by something. Now, which is really interesting, if a private equity company was to come and buy you out, okay, the first thing that they're looking for is, are you growing 20% year over year? And do you have 20% or greater profitability? And the reason for that is because they could invest in treasury bonds and get a 5% return. They could invest in the S&P 500 and be able to get almost a 10% return. So realistically, this is very low risk. And then in order for them to be able to take on a little bit more risk, they need to be in the 20 to 30% plus range. And by the way, that's why tech is awesome. And that's why they go for high valuations, because there's almost 70 to 90% margins and there's not a ton of risk and there's a lot of revenue retention. So that's why softwares usually do really well when they go to sell. For PT clinics, on the other hand, we're trying to find this sweet spot between 20 to 30% profitability. Now, again, I'm speaking long-term. You're like, what does this have to do with my pricing? Just listen. So we're at 20 to 30% is what we want to have from a margin standpoint. So that means that we want to be able to set our pricing to at least get a 20% margin, okay? Because if a cost per visit is $100, we want to be able to at least collect something that's going to get us 20% profit margin. That being said, you shoot for 20%, you usually land on 5 or 10. You shoot for 30, you land on 20, so on and so forth. So here at Rehab CEOs, what we like to do is we like to set clinics up specifically for cash pricing at least at 35% profit margin. Now, that being said, this is going to be your cash price, and you could set this price. And I always like my cash price to be the highest thing we set. I don't want it to be the lowest, so on and so forth. We want it to be the highest because we're going to use it in sales as a price anchor. What do I mean by that? Is just like, well, hey, I just want to let you know, Steve, we typically charge $200 for a routine visit, but because you have Blue Cross Blue Shield and you only have a 20% coinsurance, it's only going to be, right? We have $200 is what we typically charge for an initial eval. And because you have Aetna and you met your deductible, it's only going to be $35. Okay. See how I could price anchor? So I could be like, well, so that therefore you are going to save $165 every time you come in. How awesome is that? And the reason we do that is because if you just say you have a $55 copay, if they compare it to what? Like $55 is expensive, but if we compare it to $200 cash visit, it's not. Okay. See the difference? So when we're looking at this thing, we have $100. We're going to divide that by 0.65. Okay. So whatever you figure out your cost per visit, 0.65 is going to be the low end. Now, because it is the cash pricing, I do like to even get up to almost 50% or 40% margin here, just because I want to make sure that we have higher margins on our cash prices. So I'm not opposed to you guys taking your cost per visit and just dividing it by 0.6. Okay. So that is where I would like you guys to be at. So let's take $100 here and let's just divide that by 0.6. Okay. So in this example, and you might come up with a wonky number. Like I came up with $166.67. Okay. So I like to then go either down or go up. So I could charge, $160 a session, which again, will cut into my margins a little bit. I could cut up to $170 and I'm like, well, I don't necessarily love $170. So I'm kind of trying to find a number that I really enjoy and I like, which might be like a $170 or $175. So let's just say in this example here, I'm like, I don't love the triple sixes there. Let's go ahead and do $160. So I'm kind of finding a number that's pretty close to what I want. Cool. So we just figured out that we're going to set our cash pricing at $160. But here's the next step in the equation. Okay. This is what most people do. They're like, well, I'm going to set it at $160, but then they start to do discounts or they start to offer different things. Or they're saying like, if you buy a package of 10, I'll give you 20% off. Okay. This is going to be key for you guys. I want you to land on $160. Okay. I want you to land on $160. So let's just say we do packages or we do custom plan of cares. And it's just like, if you go ahead and prepay in full for 14 sessions or 15, I'm going to go ahead and give you a 20% off discount. So what we want to be able to do is then mark this up 20%. Okay. So you take 160 or whatever number you just figured out, you divide it by 0.8, and that gives us this number. Okay. 200. See, that's why I picked 160. I know it went. It's just 200. So now we have 200. So what does this mean? So now you kind of present it like this. You're like, well, hey, Steve, we typically charge $200 for a session. And because you're going to need about 15 sessions, your total package price is going to be, right? So I'll get my calculator. So I know this one, but I'll use it for the next ones. It's going to be $3,000. Okay. So it's going to be $3,000 total for your plan of care. Okay. So let's just say we're selling a cash or a non-network package. And now what you can say, however, most of our patients, they go ahead and prepay in full. Okay. So if you go ahead and prepay in full today, I'll be able to give you a 20% off discount, which will be $600 off. So your remaining balance will be about $2,400. Okay. Sound fair? Right? Does that work for you? Or would you like to pay cash, credit, and check with that? Right? All the things. So what do we just do there? We take 240, divide it by 15 sessions, and voila. Okay. And we are going to hit, just so you guys could see and I could see, make sure we didn't lose it here, 160. Okay. So if we're at 160 and our cost per visit now is 100, we're in really good shape. Simple. Okay. Simple. Now, what I would coach you guys on, if that's could be your routine visit pricing, right? Because I'm going to set my routine visit pricing up that way. Now, if I want to do an eval price, just add $50 to that, right? So maybe your eval price will now be $250, right? Show price, you got $200 for your routines, and now we're off to the races. Okay? Super simple. So if you're an existing clinic, really, really easy. You want to take your cost per visit. You want to figure out exactly what that is. Now, I do a 6-month average because it is kind of in flux a little bit. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to set up our routine visit pricing, which is typically going to be at that 0.6 with a 40% margin in there. And then I go ahead and mark it up 20%. So then that way, if you guys are offering discounts and so on and so forth, there's going to be your eval pricing, and then there's going to be your routine visit plan of care pricing. Okay. Now, if you're a new clinic and you want to be able to figure out like what's the plan for you guys, let's say you're a new clinic here and you're just starting. Now, if you're just starting and you don't have any visits, what I typically will do is I'll start at like a really lower price. Now, this might cause some people to lose their mind in the comment section, and that's fine. But I would rather fill my schedule first and then raise prices versus having really high prices and then lower, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, so if you're a new clinic and you're figuring out your prices, I would rather start low and then raise my prices versus start at premium and then try to get people to come in. And the reason for that is when you're a premium, you have to have some level of like, this works. And some of you guys don't realize this, but when it comes to sales, right? When it comes to sales or selling things, first they have to believe in you, they have to believe in your process, and then they have to actually believe that it'll work for them. Okay. Now, the cool part about physical therapy is that they believe that doctors know what they're doing. They believe that you know your process because they see all your reviews and testimonials, and they just have to ask, will that work for you? However, a new physical therapy clinic doesn't have that credibility or that credibility yet. You have to earn it over time. Okay. So therefore, what I like to do is I like to set my cash prices maybe a little bit on the lower side of things, try to get filled up. Most of our guys are going to be one-on-one for an hour to start. Maybe they're doing 40-minute scheduling. So at the very minimal, I want to make sure that you guys are set up to make 140. Okay. So I want to make sure that you guys are set up to make about $140 because 140, okay, 140 with an admin, if you guys have an admin working with you, get you around 20K a month if you guys are doing 40 slots a week. Okay. So if we're doing 140 here and we go ahead and divide that by the 0.6, which we just talked about, or excuse me, I lied to you. 140 here divided by 0.2 or 0.8. Cool. So that's going to actually have a show price 175 for your routine visits. And then if we take 175 there and then obviously add $50 like we talked about, be about 220, 225. So what do we just figure out? Okay. We have your eval pricing. We have your routine visit price. These are more your show prices. And then we're trying to land here on 140. So, hey, you know, Mr. Steve, we typically charge 175 for the visit, but if you go ahead and sign up today, I could give you 20% off. And then we land here at about 140. Okay. Now, if you want to set your prices up a little bit lower than that, fine. But just know that because your rent and your cost and so on and so forth, things might get a little bit tighter. Okay. Now, something I want to show you guys here in a second, when it comes to raising your prices here, conversion rates. Okay. Conversion rates. And some people lose their mind a little bit because they're like, you know, like I'm running Facebook ads and they're not converting. It's like, well, you know, typically Facebook usually converts at 10 to 30%. And then, you know, your Google, your website, your SEO stuff usually is from like 30 to 60%. Past patients, returning, word of mouth referrals, people finding you through your Google reviews, physician referrals are usually 60 to like 80%. Okay. So just know that if you guys are up here in like the 60 to 80% close rate on your cash prices, you're probably like probably like a 1.2 to like a 1.75 underpriced. And what I mean by that is that like, if you guys are charging like 140 a session, closing 60 to 80%, like you could easily raise your price to like a 200 to 225, no problem, right? Now, if for any reason you guys are under, right, 30%, close rates, more specifically, like down in the 20 to 10 range, like this is a skill set issue. Like your front office or even yourself is just lacking the ability to close people. So we got to increase that skill. And then realistically, from a cash closing standpoint, we're trying to find the sweet spot between like 30 to 60%. Okay. Most clinics will fall between 30, 40, but some really good clinics will fall between 50, 60%, which is totally normal. Okay. So conversion rate. All right. So going back to kind of our initial model, hopefully you guys are with me on that. You have just determined your prices. So if you want to stop this video here, and if you guys want to go ahead and figure out your pricing before we go on, awesome. Then you can go ahead and turn it back on and join us. But just know also, if you guys stick around to the end of the video, if you guys are enjoying these strategies of increasing your RPV, well, I want to make sure that we give you more of those. So we have 10 other ways to increase the RPV in your clinic, which is your revenue per visit. Make sure you guys click the link in the description below. So next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to go over, okay? We are going to go over the plan. Now, here's the thing. Here's why increasing prices is really, really cool. Because let's say you are trying to make $20,000 a month per provider, okay? So let's just say you're trying to make 20 grand plus a month per provider here. And if we take that number here, based on routine visits and so on and so forth, we got 20,000 divided by 4.2. Okay, that means that we are roughly trying to make around $4,761 a week. And if you guys are charging, you know, $100 a session, right? So if we take that and divide it by $100 a session, it's like, well, you're going to need to do around 48 arrivals for the week. Okay. Now, however, if you have $20,000 and we're still trying to do 4,761, and you guys were set up to do around $200 a session, okay? So you take your 4761 and divide that by $200. Well, now we're at 24. Okay. So 24 arrivals for the week. So what we just did there is, so you guys are aware, is that just know that the higher your RPV, revenue per visit, the less patients you need, right? So it's just like, you don't need as much in marketing. You don't need as much in, fulfillment. You don't need as much in all the things. You could just work with less patients a little bit more often and get better results, right? As long as your pricing is good. Now, I understand people watching this video, might say that like, well, I'm an in-network clinic. Great. Awesome. You still have cash prices. And you're like, well, I'm an in-network clinic. And it's just like, well, great. You still got add-on prices. It's all the same thing, right? So it's just like, you want to be able to set your cash prices in a way that's not lower than your insurance carriers, right? People will be like, oh, well, because they don't have insurance, I'm going to give them a discount. It's like, no, because they don't have insurance, they could pay more because we're not paying insurance premiums, right? Plus, you should never have your cash prices underneath your insurance prices, first and foremost. And then also from a sales standpoint, we want to do that price anchoring. So the plan here that we're kind of come up with, is we want to make sure that like, okay, why are we raising our prices? And the plan itself is how are we going to roll this out with our folks, okay? So the first thing that I always want to do is, when it comes to the plan, is there's 3 people, maybe 4, that we have to be aware of. So, and again, the goal here is how do we raise our prices without losing a patient? First thing that we want to be able to do is there's going to be your general public, active patients, then we have our past patients, and then maybe, just maybe, we'll let our referral sources know. Maybe. Okay. So super simple, right? So again, the goal here is how do we do this without losing any people? Okay. So first and foremost, you just raise your prices on general public, right? Just raise your prices. They've never been here before. So you just raise your price and then, you just present it to them. And then the cool part about that, remember that conversion rate we were talking about, right? So if you make 10 offers, right? 10 offers, again, I want 3 to 6 people to say yes to the offer. Right? That's a good price point. Now, if for any reason I get like 8 to 9 people saying yes, well, that just means that I'm underpriced and I could raise my prices. So I give you guys permission to let your front office know, like each month, like raise your price a little bit each month. Like some people raise their price once and haven't raised it in years. It's like you could raise your price every month until you have supply demand issues. Okay. Now, if you are supply constrained, right? You need, demand constraint. You just need more new patients. It's like, well, then lower your price, right? To bring in some of those people and fill your schedule. And once you get supply, right? You're running out of fulfillment. Then you could go ahead and raise your pricing because it's a higher demand, right? So ultimately, general public, super simple. We just raise our prices. We make offers, no harm, no foul. Now, active patients, okay? Well, if we raise our prices on the active patients, aren't they going to get upset? Yes. Okay. So we don't raise our prices on the people who already bought Plan of Cares. Okay. So we just honor the prices that they came in with, right? A lot of our clients here, they came into our program. We're always kind of raising our prices, but at the same time, the people who are bought in, we don't raise prices on them because they've been with us. They've invested us in the beginning. So we reward them by giving them more stuff at the same price, right? Maybe eventually we could raise their price, but just not right now, right? So imagine someone that just joined the program and then 2 or 3 months later, we're just like, just kidding, we're raising your prices. Probably want to work out that well. So realistically, it's just like active patients, we just don't raise their prices. Okay. Now, is that always? No, it's not an absolute statement, right? We are not going to raise their prices unless we are losing money. Okay. Like if we are losing money because we're like, and when I say that, like you are full, you have like 3 or 4 providers and you're losing money, then yeah, we got to raise prices on everybody, right? Because we just can't fulfill at the price points that we're at right now. We're going to go out of business. So I would rather lose some people in that scenario. Sometimes we see this with like insurance companies terminating insurances, which you guys will learn in that RPV stack guide that we have down in the description. But for now, it's just like, we're just not going to raise prices on active people, right? Pretty cool with that? Now, past patients, what we like to do, these are individuals that we might run a campaign where it's just like, hey, we are going to raise prices. Like we are raising our prices. Okay. And I want you guys to know right now we're at $140 a session or whatever the price we came to, right? I think it was $160, right? Or $140. Let's just say $140. There you go. $140. It's just like, we're going to be raising our prices to $200 for a routine visit and $250 for an initial evaluation. Boo. Okay. Now, what you can do is you could say, we are raising our prices at the end of March. Well, good news. Today is January. So for the next 2 months, you could buy as many sessions as you want, right? You could lock in our current price of $140. Okay. Right. So we want to influx of cash here, right? So you're going to be able to do like a open enrollment of sorts, or you're going to be able to bring in some cash. People call it pulling cash forward, right? But we give people an opportunity. Hey, prices are going up, but if you guys want to go ahead and buy the package price now, awesome. So it gives our past patients the opportunity to lock in their, remember, active patients are already locked in. So it gives them an opportunity to lock in current rates. And then at the end of the March, then guess what? We raise our prices. So if a past patient comes back, right, we didn't lose the patient because they're not an active patient, right? Right. But if they come back and they're just like, hey, like prices went up, it's just like, yep, prices went up. Right. So it's either we reduce the time of service here and the quality, or we just increase the pricing on things. So we decided to increase the prices, keep the quality the same, if not better. Okay. By the way, if you increase prices, your quality will go up because you could pay providers more. You could get better equipment, better space, so on and so forth. Okay. And then realistically, I said referral sources. I do have to add this in here because we do have some people that, are very tied in with cash, referral sources or whatever. Or like if you're an insurance company and you're dropping in insurance, you might want to let your referral source know. But there might be a reason why you guys might want to let your referral sources know that you're increasing your prices. Now, do you put it on your website? No. You don't put your pricing on your website. Okay. A lot of people that when I hear them say that I put pricing on my website, or can I put pricing on my website? It just means that you suck at sales. And you're just like, I just want my price. When they see it and then they call, I know that they know my price. And it's just like, no, right? We're not playing that game, right? So, and just so you guys are aware, we're raising prices not for them to get 60 minutes one-on-one. We're raising prices so that they're able to, play with their grandkids and lift them for the first time in a while. Or, maybe they're having pain with sex and they're able to have sex with their husband or wife now without discomfort. Or, maybe when they go running, they have leakage. And they want to be able to get back to running marathons without, being embarrassed of peeing their pants. Or, they're an athlete that needs to get back to playing sports. Like we're creating transformation. Like this is transformative selling and pricing and very strategic versus like, they're paying for features. I'm a big fan of like, you always sell the future, not the features, right? It helps. So it's just like paint the picture in the future and tie it back into there versus like nitpicking the features. Okay. So awesome. Just to recap here, you guys should already have your price. You guys now have your plan in place. And then we're going to go ahead and just present this, right? We're going to go ahead and present this to your people, right? So again, general public, we just raise prices. There's really no presentation or awareness, okay? Active patients, I like to let them know that we are raising prices for other people. There you go. I wasn't sharing it, but we got price, plan, present. We have general public. We have active patients. So general public, we just raise it. Don't let them know. Active patients, I do let them know that we're raising our prices, but not for them. Okay. And the reason for that is because if they send friends and family members, I don't want them telling them their price versus the new price kind of thing. It kind of gets a little bit dicey there. So I do let them know that, but I want them to know we're raising prices, but I'm doing them a favor. Okay. Everybody cool with that? And then we also have past patients. These are the ones that we're going to do that open enrollment. We're going to open it up for about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks here. And then we're going to be able to, so we do the open enrollment, we run it through, and then we pull that cash forward. Obviously, you guys will do the fulfillment then, and then we go ahead and just raise our prices. And we never say that, hey, this is our pricing day. We honor that. Okay. And, a lot of times the clients will come in and they'll say, hey, could you help with open enrollment? We put together the whole campaign. We run it for them. And then usually most people, which is cool, we just recently had someone do a 6-figure day on an open enrollment, but most people do about mid to, mid-ish, like 10 to about 70 grand in cash collected with doing those open enrollments. So they're powerful things. You can do it yearly basis. You can do it once a year, twice a year, but once a year is good. And then behind the scenes, you could just, increase your prices for general public, which, by the way, is really cool because you could be increasing your prices throughout the year on general public, and then you could roll out during your open enrollment your new pricing to your active and past patients later in the year. Cool. So hopefully that was beneficial for you guys to see ways that you could increase your revenue per visit and your prices without losing a single patient.